Gonna pause my Slack notifications for.
Right. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for hopping on with us today. Very exciting. How's your day been? How's the you're from Seattle, if
Yes,
I'm correct?
Seattle, that's
Yeah.
correct.
How are things out there?
It's been good, yeah. So I spent
Yeah.
most of the morning on phone calls, but I predominantly work with Romania these days, so I have a lot of early morning phone calls.
Romania. Wow. Does UiPath have a lot of accounts in Romania, or is
Well,
that
actually, that's where UiPath started. So our
oh,
largest
wow.
office is still in Romania.
Very
So
cool, very cool. So most of your
probably
team is there.
about a third of our worldwide employees are in Romania.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool. So UiPath is a very global company. I know there's a lot of UiPath is pretty prominent in India as well in the APAC region. So it's very cool. Very cool. So Andrew, I'm gonna get into it. So well, welcome for all those that are here, that are watching. I'm going to start off with a quick announcement, basically about our summer league programs, where it's now real quick for everyone that's joining, as I wanted to go over some of the exciting things that we're working on at Major League Hacking. For those of you who don't know, we're hosting digital events nearly every day. So this weekend we're hosting a digital hackathon called Not University Hacks. For all you high school hackers, learn more at mlh.io. We have a localist workshops happening as well, all this week, and they're throughout the summer. So very exciting stuff. And this is where you can learn new skills and hands-on coding experience. And you can find all that at the ML local.host/events. And we're really excited to have a blockchain workshop tomorrow at 9 a.m. EST. And I hope to see you all there. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing at MLH right now, Andrew. We're hosting a ton of digital hackathons and digital workshops. A little bit about Andrew. So Andrew here is been a product owner at UiPath. It's no code automation authoring tool Studio X. Prior to joining UiPath about a year ago, Andrew spent a decade working as a product manager on the Visual Studio and .NET team at Microsoft. He was just telling me how he's been at Microsoft for over 11 years, and before moving to UiPath. So Andrew has got his start as a software engineer coming out of college with a degree in computer science. After working on a few projects as a software engineer, he made the switch to project management and product management projects as a software engineer, preferring that high customer interaction, and has loved every minute of it. That's kind of a little introduction there for you, Andrew. Could you add more to that? Tell me a little bit more about yourself besides the classic introduction.
Yeah, so I mean, I think as you said, I got my start degree in computer science, went and wrote code for a while, about 18 months. Had fun with it, but I realized that I really liked my favorite part was figuring out how to do things the first time. And once I knew how to do something, like I'd learned how to write that type of application, the next time that somebody wanted me to write a different flavor of it wasn't quite as interesting. So I ended up going back and getting my master's degree in computer science, and then from there was talking to a recruiter at Microsoft, and they said, "Well, we have three different roles: dev, test, and PM. Which one do you want to interview for?" And I said, "What's PM?" And they described the role to me, and I said, "That sounds like fun. I'll interview for that." And as they say, the rest is history. So I got an offer, went to work on started off in the Visual Studio Debugger team, which was really fun because I had been a customer of Visual Studio for the previous 3 years doing software development. And so I said, yeah, I get to go work and help improve a product that I've actually used. And so that's pretty fun. And so, yeah, I ended up staying on the Visual Studio team for, it wasn't quite 11 years, so just a little under 11 years. But switched around, worked on different projects while I was there, but stayed within the broader product group. My last 3 years, I was a lead on the .NET team, responsible for all the web and .NET development tools that ship out of Visual Studio, including the C# extension and Visual Studio Code. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love as you mentioned, getting on the phone with customers, talking to them, understanding their needs, and figuring out how to solve their problems. As I said, the reason I switched to product management was once I figured out how to do something in a code perspective, I'm like, okay, the fun part was figuring out how to do it. And my favorite thing about product management is like customers' needs are always evolving. And so there's always a new interesting problem to go solve and figure out how to, make it better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you sound like you'd love the hackathon environment. Have you been to any hackathons when you were in college?
I have done hackathons. Yeah, so
Okay.
I've done multiple hackathons. I love hackathons. I think as you said, yep, they totally appeal to me. The idea of you have 28 or 24 or 48 hours, depending on how long it is, to go make something work. Yeah, absolutely love
Yeah.
hackathons.
I see you being that person who's gonna like just dedicate and like delegate all the tasks out at a hackathon and just working on the project and like just that high environment. I know Microsoft has a really cool hackathon, but yeah, very cool. So a little bit more in the sense that we'll get right into what is RPA and how did you end up at UiPath? Tell us a little bit more about that journey. How did you get looped into it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So RPA as a start is the idea that you have, it stands for robotic process automation. So we should probably define the term. And when you tell people that, people go, "Oh, cool, like robots." But we're actually talking about software robots. So it's a piece of software that runs on the computer, but it does actions like a user would do them in a lot of cases. So you can make API calls, but that's nothing special to RPA. But what makes RPA really special is it has capabilities built in that can do UI automation. So it can do things like click buttons or type into text fields just like a user would do. And so it lets you automate things that are not automatable using traditional like software scripting or other applications. So the how I ended up at UiPath and then the reason why I went are kind of related. I had some friends from Microsoft who joined UiPath before I did. So let's just start there and be honest. Like how I learned about UiPath was I had friends that had got connected with UiPath and they said, "Yeah, we're working for this company." Then they started telling me about it. But there was some stuff that I had to do work related, and I won't give too many details, but I had tried to automate it myself using web APIs. Like they didn't have it documented. It was an internal system. But I said, all right, I'm going to fire up my browser. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to use the network inspector, and I'm going to figure out how to call these APIs directly, so I don't have to do this every day by just going and clicking a web browser. And so I tried to call the web APIs, and I immediately got a rejection back saying this website requires JavaScript to authenticate. Basically, it was not possible to automate the particular task I was trying to do via, I'd say, traditional methods, so like scripting. You had to drive it through the browser because it was using JavaScript to actually run its authentication code, and so it had to be executed inside the context of a browser. Like, oh, this is frustrating and annoying. And so when I started playing with RPA and UiPath specifically, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. This actually solves a real problem that I had very recently. How do you automate something that wants and requires itself to be run in a browser?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
right. And I know the classic task, if it's redundant and it needs to be done over and over again, why not just automate it, right? And that's exactly what UiPath makes it simple to do. But yeah, so Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and show a video that you had shared with me earlier on how to share your first task automation with UiPath. So here we go. For those of you watching, just hang on real quick while I share my screen. It's taking a minute here. Ooh.
All right. So while you're bringing it up, I'll just say what you're going to see. So this is a video. Anybody can go see it. She's playing it off of YouTube. We linked this in the product. But what do you prefer, Anu or Anuhya?
Anu works.
Okay. What Anu is going to show is what we call UiPath Studio X. It's the product that I'm responsible for, and it's our no-code developer authoring tool, or a no-code tool that's aimed at people who don't necessarily have a lot of coding experience. And so we have two products that are specifically aimed at building automations inside UiPath. We have Studio X, which is the no-code solution, and then we have another tool called UiPath Studio that requires more programming concepts and more programming skills. So Studio, if we get the video to play, you'll see in Studio X, we don't really ask you for any really any programming concepts such as defining types and variables and things like that. Whereas Studio is a little bit more traditional in the sense that you define variables that have different types. It's actually built on top of .NET, so it's all the .NET types that are exposed. So dictionaries and arrays and integers. We're not asking users to do any of that here in Studio X.
Right, and I'll go ahead and play the video. I think we're good.
Be placed inside the resource. So we'll add a use Excel file and browse for the file. We can leave the name like this since it's the only Excel file used in this automation. And since we'll access a web page, let's also add a use application and indicate it. In our case, it's Chrome. And because the Chrome extension is installed, Studio X can read the URL and store it. This way, whenever the automation will be run, it will open this browser and this page. Next, let's enter the name into the text box on the web page. We'll use a type into activity, just like a human user would. We'll click Indicate Target and choose the text box. It's highlighting in green the text box in which the name goes, but it's also identified an anchor, the label that's associated with it. The use of anchors makes the identification process more reliable. Alright, so now the question is, how do we type the value from the Excel file into that text box? And we've indicated where we want to type. Now let's fill in the type this by clicking the plus icon here. It's going to offer several options, including Excel. This is what we need, so let's choose it, followed by Indicate in Excel. We'll choose the cell that has the name and click Confirm. And we can see the cell information here. So now we're typing the value from the cell into that website. We'll now need to do a click to submit it. Click is also the name of the action that we'll use. And we'll indicate the target, and that looks good. The final thing that we need to do after clicking the button is reading the value, the generated unicorn name, and saving it back into our Excel file. We'll do this with a getText action. It's going to ask us to indicate on the screen the value that we want to copy. The target is the right one, but the anchor is not reliable. As soon as the name will change, it will stop working. We'll click the delete icon here and use another anchor, your unicorn name. This won't change. We'll save the value to Excel and we'll indicate the cell next to the name and confirm. Alright, now with that, let's run our automation and see if it does what we expect. Studio X minimizes the application and starts running. It types the name here, clicks the button, and a new unicorn name is generated. The automation is now finished. Let's confirm that everything works as expected. We'll go to Excel and...
That is so cool. So you basically work on product managing that very like UI-based application, right?
Yeah, so that's correct.
That's very cool. Especially like unicorn names. What a fun example. And you actually did that video, right?
Yeah, I'm not the voice on the video, but I did record that on my machine. That's correct, yeah.
Right. Very cool. So Andrew, a little bit more about what exactly is UiPath currently working on amidst the COVID-19 era right now. I was reading a couple articles on it. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think RPA, as I mentioned, it's really glue from my perspective. That automation allows you to stitch all these disparate systems together that were never designed to work together. And so there have been a lot of places in various points in the world that have been using our technology to speed up dealing with various administrative tasks that have resulted from COVID. Examples of that have been processing unemployment claims that have been submitted in various places. In the United States, they passed a payroll protection plan, and that was administered through banks. Banks had to take the loans and process the loan applications and decide whether to approve them or reject them, meaning if the person was eligible for a payroll protection plan. And so there were some banks that were using UiPath technology to help with that loan processing. Because, if you think about it, sometimes, well, the loan application comes in on this system or this format, but maybe you have to type information into a different system to go verify, business tax IDs or things like that. And then there have been other countries in the world that have been using UiPath technology for health screening, for example, to process test results if people have been tested for COVID-19. So yeah, we've been very proud and very humbled by the fact that a lot of people have found, real world uses to help things run more efficiently in this time using our technology.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think I was reading that article that you mentioned, especially it said freeing up nurses because there's such a high demand for healthcare workers right now, right? It seems that UiPath is taking the forefront of automating those tasks using RPA and such. Very cool. So going more into as far as like the COVID, what do you see like RPA going, coming out of this age, right? Where do you see RPA in the future?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two aspects that we talk about when we RPA, and it's at least worth defining the terms and distinguishing them. So we have one thing that we call unattended automation. And this is the idea that you're automating processes running on a server somewhere. So for example, processing loan applications probably fall into that category. And so, especially as, the world continues to, with the economic impact of COVID-19, it's important for businesses to get more efficient. And a robot can work 24/7, whereas a human can't. And so I think you're going to continue to see businesses do more, look to automate more and more things to make them more efficient, especially, in the financial services sector. A couple examples we gave: processing loan applications, processing unemployment applications, things like that. There's all these horror stories about people waiting for, I've been trying for 4 weeks and I can't get through to even get my unemployment application filed. And so I think one of the, potentials, or where RPA is going to continue to grow and continue to become more important, a bigger part of the world, is just improving the efficiency of those services that people have to have, whether that be testing, processing, or things like that. The other piece, and I think why it's worth distinguishing between unattended and attended, is what we call attended automation. And so Studio X, the video we just looked at, is aimed at helping people build their own attended automations. And this is, instead of running on a server somewhere, users are using a robot on their machine as an assistant for themselves. And the assistant lets you do two things. It helps you do things faster. So it's certainly not just a, speed matters. But the other huge thing that I think sometimes gets overlooked when we think about automation is you avoid errors in a lot of cases. So for example, we've all had to go type in forms for lots of things, right? Every time you order something on Amazon, or, I feel like I probably fill out, 35 forms a day on websites. And every now and then it's like, they all have a little different format. Like, my first name space last name, or I want your last name here and your first name there. And we all realize at some point we've mistyped something. And so using RPA, an attended automation that's a digital assistant for you that helps you just enter information regularly, can make it faster, but it can also avoid mistakes, which can be problematic to correct in the future.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like basically UiPath allows the ability for anyone to make a robot, anyone to make that software application to ease their day-to-day life, right? But yeah, very cool. So Andrew, do you have any advice for our community as far as the hackers? UiPath, a lot of hackers use it on the daily. Do you have advice on how they can approach, especially, in fact, I am telling my younger brother, who is in grade 8, I was like, hey, this weekend there's a hackathon, use UiPath and like create something. So do you have any tips for the young hackers and just hackers in general?
I do. I probably have two big tips. The first tip is, have fun and do something that you're passionate about, especially when you're hacking. Hacking should be fun. It should be about learning. And you're not going to be driven to kind of do that if it's not something you're passionate about and interested in. I think we've all had to work on projects for school, probably, where, it's like, oh, this is boring, it's drudgery, and you're not going to be motivated. You're not going to throw yourself into it. So find something that's fun that you really care about. Don't do a project for the sake of doing a project, but find a project that really intrigues you and that you have a personal interest in seeing solved. And then the second piece of advice I have kind of falls out of that. And I hinted at this already in terms of what inspired me to come to UiPath, And that is a piece of advice I got from one of my software engineering professors my junior year in college, and it stuck with me. He said, nobody pays you to write software. People pay you to solve problems. And so I think when you're thinking about hacking, not just finding something that you're passionate about, but finding a real problem that actually needs to be solved. There are a few examples in history where people built technology and then all of a sudden it took off, iPhone, iPad being examples of that. But the majority of things that succeed in life are where people actually solve problems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's any hackathon, you have to identify a particular problem and solve it. Going back to my younger brother, he's obsessed with sneakers. So he actually got his first introduction to UiPath by automating going through sites by web scraping up the cheapest options for sneakers, which is like a very intro level aspect to it. But yeah, clearly that was a problem for him to find the cheapest shoes out there. So he saw that as a problem and he solved that.
I actually think RPA is probably the perfect embodiment of that philosophy, because I think in a perfect world, you wouldn't need RPA. Everything would have publicly accessible APIs, and you could drive everything via APIs. But that's not the real world, right? Businesses install system A, at some point, and 10 years later, they install system B, and now they need to figure out how to make the two talk to each other, and the two were never designed to talk to each other. And so I think RPA is a great example in and of itself of coming up with a practical solution to a problem, which if you were going to sit down and say, I had a magic wand, I could fix everything, RPA wouldn't be the solution. But the real world we live in is you have to solve the problems you have. You don't have a magic wand to rewrite the past to make everything work perfect in the future.
Right, exactly. So solve the problem is the big thing. So tagging off of that, what career advice do you have for people like me who are trying to get into in fact, I want to be a product manager in the future. So what career advice do you have for people like myself?
Yeah, probably a couple pieces of things. So especially from a product management perspective, one of the most important things to do is to learn how to listen and identify the real problem that's there. I know you're a CS major, so I'm sure you've taken some software engineering classes, and they probably taught you that customers never actually ask for what they really want. So I'm going to share a little story from a training class I had to take a while ago, but I think it really speaks to identifying the problem. And so a term that comes up a lot in product management, if you've taken this particular training class, there's different flavors of it, but as you talk about it as something, a dent or a rat. And so they started off probably about 150 people in this room, and they said, okay, who here has a dent in their car? And 10 people or 15 people raise their hand or something. And so they say, okay, how long, on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying is the dent in your car? 7, 8, right? So it's probably about a 7.5 was the average thing. And I said, okay, how long has the dent been in your car? Oh, 6 months. Oh, 8 months. Oh, 9 months. Oh, a year and a half. Well, why? I was going to have to take it into the shop for 3 days, and it was too inconvenient. It was going to be too much money. Wasn't etc. Okay, who here has ever had a rat or a mouse in their house? Okay, hands go up. Yeah. Okay, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying much did it bother you? 9, 8, 9. This is probably about an 8.5 or something like that. So only on a scale of 1 to 10, people rated it pretty much the same as the dent, only slightly above, but not meaningfully. It wasn't, one was like a 4 and one was like a 9. And so they said, okay, what did you do? Oh, well, I got on the phone, I called an exterminator, I ran down to Home Depot, and I got traps. And so it was really, and this is really a kind of product management, but it fits into that solving the problem, so they said, okay, so if you were going to build a business, having a business removing dents from people's car is not nearly as good as a business that deals with exterminating, rodents in people's houses. And the way that you can tell that is, even though people told you, pretty much that they were on par, equally annoying, and they equally cared as much, one actually inspired them to go looking for a solution. And one, they were only going to solve if it was super inexpensive and super, convenient. And so I think this is more sort of generally product and management advice, but it's, looking for those things that actually inspire action. And this may be even, I guess, good career advice when you're thinking about where to go. But, the term comes up, it's probably been overused that it's a cliche, but where is the puck going? And so it's similar to kind of my hackathon advice, but it's, find something that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about it, that's the number one thing. The next question I think you should evaluate when you're looking at potential jobs is, what are you going to learn? And so, you should always feel like you're going to learn something and you're going to be challenged in a way that you're going to have to grow. I don't think you're ever going to have fun or be passionate in a role where you already know how to do it. In my opinion, you shouldn't take a job you think you're 100% qualified for. You should go for a job that you feel like is going to stretch you and grow you. And then, those are really the most important things. Are you having fun? Are you interested? Are you passionate? Are you learning and growing? And then if you're deciding after that, it's really important in the technology industry to understand what the trends are and to kind of have, I said, try to go in the direction of the trends. So, being a COBOL developer probably isn't the best place to start your career right now. There's certainly people that are still making money maintaining COBOL code, but it's not where you want to start your career.
Right. Something more exciting, something that I'm passionate about is how you would start with the passion aspect of it and kind of go in that direction of that flow. What do you say is a good place to get started, resources and such? How did you get started with Microsoft? What was your driving factor in that sense?
Well, as I said, I think the reason I ended up taking the Microsoft job, I had a couple job offers coming out of school, was it was a product I believed in because I had used it, I liked it, and I thought it was, and I thought I had the opportunity to go and make a difference based on my experience with it from the user side of things. So in terms of how I got started, so maybe a UiPath might be a more recent example. But, so as mentioned, a couple friends of mine had come to UiPath and they said, hey, there's this position working on the Studio family. Studio X was still a prototype at that point. But, and they gave me a link to the product. And so what I did is on a Saturday morning, I sat down for 4 hours and I built some automations with it. And I said, this is really, really cool. And so I think, there's an element of, I always had a bar for myself if I was going to ever change jobs. And it's one of the reasons why I stayed in Visual Studio for so long, because I really, really loved it. As I basically said, I have to believe in the product. I have to believe that the product is going to be successful or a company. And I have to work on something that I myself can be a customer of. I don't think things work very well if you want to build a product that you don't want to use yourself.
Right. Exactly. Right. Absolutely. So opening up, thank you, Andrew, for answering all my questions. So I'm now going to open up the floor to if we have any questions from the folks that are watching currently. There's a little bit of a delay there, so let's wait here. But Andrew, another question I was wondering is, as far as what do you see? Do you work with interns at UiPath, or do you mentor folks currently in this field?
So I'm not a formal mentor currently. UiPath is still a pretty young company, so we're I guess in the process of kind of evolving and growing some of those things. But yeah, last summer we had interns in the office when we actually had an office to be in. It's still there, but it's closed. We're currently staying home right now. I'm in Seattle, which was obviously one of the first places to get hit by COVID. So we shut down pretty early back in March. So we have interns around. We had interns around last summer. I certainly work with a lot of other product managers that I guess you could say, sure, I'm in an informal mentoring role. And that's actually maybe another piece of great career advice. When you first join, go find mentors. I had mentors all through my career of, find that older person who's been around, has more experience, and just, ask them to have coffee once every couple of weeks or once a month or something like that.
Right. Absolutely.
I think, a mentor is not necessarily a marriage, so to speak, that I think you should feel free when seeking out mentors to, I think generally I would say after spending, 6 to 12 months with a particular mentor, it may have a lot of value in going and finding someone new. And I don't think anybody's going to be offended, just like you're always learning.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I'm about to ask you to be my mentor at a certain point after this call, it seems, because you have so much experience. It's so inspiring. Listen to you speak. It doesn't seem that we really have any questions coming in from the audience. I'm gonna give it. There's a delay here before they go live, so I think we're gonna wrap this up here. But thank you so much, Andrew, for your time for today. Really, really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna take us off the stream
My
here.
pleasure.
Ooh. And for all those folks that are watching right now, just make sure you check out the current MLH events that are going on this weekend. Not University Hacks is one. We have Hack Girl Summer. Plenty of other events that are coming up. So definitely go check it out. Oh, and make sure to use UiPath in your hacks this weekend, because RPA is a very cool industry that's up and coming, and UiPath is at the forefront of it. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Have a great one. Oh, we do have a question here. Andrew, I'm going to bring you back onto the stream here real quick.
Okay.
It says, what would you recommend for recent graduates to expand their skills or find a job during the current pandemic? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the what the pandemic is showing us is that, you know, technology, IT, automation, distributed communication, cloud computing, all those technology areas are going to be hot and continue to grow. So I guess my very high level piece of advice is, you know, focus on one of those. AI, you know, artificial intelligence, machine learning is a huge and upcoming field that plays very strongly into the automation. We're looking at how to do automation. So, you know, from a very high level, without knowing your specific skill set and background, focus on something in the, you know, automation, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning kind of areas. And I don't think you can go wrong learning skills in those particular spaces. And I think a lot of that plays down to what are your passions, what are your interests, and what are your talents.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, definitely, like, currently a lot of people are going through a very tough time finding positions. So going back to the whole passion and finding that problem and solving it. But yeah, I think that's all the questions, so we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Andrew. Hope you enjoyed speaking with me today, and I really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.